Hello grade 4 students, welcome back to week 3 of our music lessons for this term. Today we're going to have things a bit lighter, a bit easier, because I'd like us to focus on rhythms and the solfege warm up. This week I really want you to work on jingle bells and holiday round, because next week I will have instructions for your assessment coming up. You really need to be confident to those two pieces, okay? So today we'll do solfege warm up and our rhythm challenges. Today we're going to have things a little bit different because everything will be on the screen. I don't have my whiteboard with me, so all your solfege, all your rhythm challenges and your pieces are going to be on the screen. And your pieces will look like what you have at home. You'll see what I mean later on. But for now, we're going to begin with our solfege warm up. We're going to remind ourselves what we did the last 2 weeks. And then I'm going to teach you a new way of singing this solfege warm up, okay? So let's remind ourselves. Let's start with do. This is our starting note. Together. Do, do, re, do. Do, re, mi, re, do. Do, re, mi, fa, mi, re, do. Do, re, mi, fa, so, fa, mi, re, do. Then from the top coming down. So, fa, so, fa, mi, fa, so, fa, mi, re, fa, so, fa, mi, re, do, re, mi, fa, so. Alright, so now for our new solfege order of singing, we're going to start back at do, and this time we're not going to be walking down the same way we walk up, okay? So we're going to be jumping from that top note down back to do. Every single time we get to the higher note, the next highest note, we jump back down to do. This is what I mean. Do, do, re, do. Do, re, mi, do. Do, re, mi, fa, do. Do, re, mi, fa, so, do. Let's do it together very slowly. Together. Do, do, re, do. Do, re, mi, do. Do, re, mi, fa, do. Do, re, mi, fa, so, do. Very good. Now, when we're coming back down from so, everything will jump from the next lowest note, because now we're moving downwards, the next lowest note back to so. This is what it looks like and sounds like. So, fa, so, fa, mi, so, fa, mi, re, so, fa, mi, re, do, so. Can we do that again together, slowly? So, fa, mi, so, fa, mi, re, so, fa, mi, re, do, so. So let's try going up and going down using that same sequence, okay? Do, do, re, do. Do, re, mi, do. Do, re, mi, fa, do. Do, re, mi, fa, so, do. Coming down. So, fa, fa, mi, so, fa, mi, re, so, fa, mi, re, do, so. Good job! Make sure you are taking time to practice these warm-ups by yourself. If you're just sitting and you're not doing anything, you can just work on your solfege warm-ups and use your hand signs. That way we can get quicker and quicker at singing these solfege notes. Today, I want us to do a new kind of rhythm, which has a rest that we've never done before. So it has the 8th note rest. Okay? The 8th note rest is equal to half a beat, just like the 8th note that we usually read. The one we usually read as T. When you have two of them, we read it as T. Okay? So the 8th note rest is half a beat. If you have two 8th notes rest next to each other, that makes up one beat, because a half plus a half equals one beat. So that is a quarter rest. We've looked at quarter rests before. So the same way you count 8th notes is the same way you will count your 8th note rest, but it will be a rest, it will be a pause. So in the rhythm that we have today, as you can see on your screen, we have an 8th note, then an 8th note rest. This is what it looks like. An 8th note, then an 8th note rest. 8th note, 8th note rest. 8th note, 8th note rest. And continues until we see ta. 8th note, quarter note. So we're going to read our 8th note rest as and. Why? Because I want you to know that the 8th note rest still completes the beat. The same way two 8th notes alongside each other make up one beat is the same way an 8th note and an 8th note rest still make up one full beat. So we're going to say T and T and T and T and. Now this rhythm exercise has 4 beats in a measure. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this 8th note rest comes in between, just in between every clap. T and T and T and T and. So the 8th note here lands on the first beat, the main part of the beat, and then the rest gets that little middle portion of the beat. Then the next main beat, middle portion. Next main beat, middle of the beat. Next main beat. Or you could say it as the other half of the beat. So that's what we are reading as and. I'm trying to go slowly so you understand. So anytime you see an 8th note rest, for now, let's just use and so that we don't confuse ourselves. Since we usually say rest, rest, for 2 quarter notes, we're going to say and to remind ourselves that it's a very short beat and it's just half. It's half of a full beat. So let's read this line and see what it sounds like all together. 1, 2, 3, let's go. T and T and T and T and T and T and T, T, ta. Again, go. T and T and T and T and T and T and T, T, ta. Now for our second exercise, it's very short. It's the same concept, but now we have more 8th notes and then just a little 8th note rest in between every 3 8th notes. So let's try that. 1, 2, 3, let's go. T, 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 and T, 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 and. Now if you notice, I'm not tapping on every 8th note. I'm just snapping the main beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the main beats of the measure. Okay, so if you're able to tell what the main beats are, then it's easier to see which ones fall on the main beats and which ones are in between. So let's try that again. 3 and go. T, 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 and T, 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 and. Now I have one more rhythm for you here. And this time we have 3 beats in a measure. 3 beats in a measure. So let's try it. Read it the exact same way. These are our 3 main beats. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Let's try. rhythm challenge over here, we have a tie. We have a quarter note tied to an eighth note, and then there's still an eighth note after that and two more quarter notes in that first measure. But several times in this exercise we see a quarter note and an eighth note following each other, and they're tied. If you notice, this rhythm challenge where we see all the ties is directly above a rhythm challenge that has our rhythm that we've been working on since last term. Tum, T, tum, T. So maybe it could be telling us something. We know, I hope you know by now, that the dot next to the quarter note means that it is half of the quarter note. The dot is half of the quarter note. The quarter note is one beat. That means the dot is half a beat. That means the dot is equal to an eighth note value. It has an eighth note value, half a beat. So we say tum whenever we see a dotted quarter note. Now when you have two notes that are tied together, what happens? You add up their values. So it's like math. Now in this case it will be one beat plus half, because they've only tied one of the eighth notes, not the pair of eighth notes. Just one of the eighth notes has been tied. That means you can write the dotted quarter note below here as the same as a quarter note tied to an eighth note. It's the same thing. So that means we read it as tum. The tied two notes we read as tum. That means this rhythm might be very similar, where we have tum, T down here in the second part of this challenge. We can do the same with the dotted. We can do the same with the quarter note tied to the eighth note, and then the eighth note pair that's left right there alone. Okay? So I want us to try and use that concept of reading the tied notes as tum. Okay? And let's see if we can get to the end of this line together. 1, 2, 3, let's go. Tum, ti, ta, 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 tum, ti, ta, ti, ti, tum, ti, ta. That's the first line over here. So can we do that one more time? 1, 2, I'm only snapping on the main beats. Tum, ti, ta, 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 tum, ti, ta, ti, ti, tum, ti, ta. Now if you notice, when I say tum, there's usually a second beat before I say T. Tum, ti, ta. So if you're clapping, it would go tum, ti, ta, 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 tum, ti, ta, ti, ti, tum, ta. Okay? Let's do this final rhythm. We're not going to do the whole line beginning to end. What we're going to do is we're going to take measure by measure, because this one can get a bit complicated. Let's try measure 1 together, okay? Slowly. 1, 2, 3, let's go. Tum, T, T, and T, and. Can we do that again? 1, 3, go. Tum, T, T, and T, and. Then like measure 2. Let's go to measure 2. 3, let's go. Tum, T, and T, and T, and. Can we do that again? 3, let's go. Tum, T, and T, and T, and. Okay. Now, let's do the final measure. If you notice, they don't put a quarter note, a quaver after the dotted quarter note. It's just a rest. So it will be tum and ta, ta. Together, 3, go. Tum and ta, ta. And And that's all for this lesson. Remember, keep working on jingle bells and holiday rounds, and I will have instructions for you next week.